Welcome to the Tribe of Testimonies. Here you will find conversations with faithful Native American members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, sharing their stories and their love of the Savior. My name's Andrea Hales. I'm Navajo, and I'm glad that you've decided to come and join us today. My guest today is Devin Nez. He is a young married man, and he is just delightful. He's a barber, and the Lord led him there, and we had a really good conversation. He actually came to my home because he comes down here to Utah pretty often, and I was really glad that he came to my home because I love talking to all of my guests on the phone, but it's different when you can look at them in the face and see when they light up when something, a memory triggers. So it was really nice to have him here. He's just full of light and happiness and joy, and I hope you get that as you listen to our conversation today. So here is Devin. Today I am in my home with Devin Nez. We've never met before, but we've been communicating off and on for a while now. Devin, would you introduce yourself as best you can in your tribal way? And it's okay if you don't, because not everybody speaks their language, and some languages are dead.
Oh yeah, for sure. Well, I'm Devin Nez. My family comes from the Four Corners area, like Shiprock, Hogback specifically, New Mexico. And yeah, I mean, I wish I could give my clients in Navajo. There was a time where I could, when I was younger, I took classes, but I really didn't grow up speaking it in the home. My grandparents speak it pretty fluently, so if they listen to this, they're probably like,
Don't worry, I've had somebody tell me, you did okay.
Yeah, Well, I come from New Mexico. My family is both sides are Navajo. My dad's from Arizona, I think specifically, and then New Mexico, and same with my mom. She grew up in Hogback and then Utah. So yeah, I mean, my clans, I believe I'm Salt Clan, Tribe of Many Goats, and stuff like that. There's a whole list, but those are the ones I just know offhand. My family's pretty big as Native families go, I guess. And we all live either in New Mexico or we're mostly in the valley right now in Utah, Lehigh, Salt Lake, Provo, Orem, you name it. We're just scattered all around, but it's cool. It's I loved growing up in New Mexico, and then I moved here for high school when I was about a freshman, so I experienced kind of both sides. So I love both places. It's cool.
That's awesome. So would you share something that you love about your heritage? It could be a story, a celebration, a way of life, anything really, yeah. Especially if it relates to the gospel of Jesus Christ.
Oh, for sure. Oh man, I just love Native American heritage in general. It's beautiful. I guess right off the bat, like I always just think of the art. I'm a big, I guess, sucker for like cool drawings and music and kind of just social gatherings where they celebrate different forms of dancing and all that. So for me specifically, though, I guess the art is the bigger part, where I just love like the designs and like when people make sand art, specifically in Navajo culture. The medicine men will go into the hogans, the homes, and they'll spend hours just dripping sand into one little spot in their different colors, and they make these beautiful murals of families, or they tell stories with it, and it stays in the home And I just love that. I love that there's always a connection to creativity, if that makes sense. And I guess the other part, way of life, is it's very family oriented. And I think that a belief in a higher being, a belief in a creator is universal to tribes, and specifically the church that we belong to, Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. It's definitely a better route to live, I think, having a faith in a God that loves his children and has a plan for each of us. So those two correlate, and it clicks for me because I can see culturally, from my Navajo heritage, that makes sense where that came from. Mm-hmm. And so I love it. It all makes sense. And that's what I love about my heritage and the church. They go hand in hand. So
yeah, I've been learning a few things lately about some possible problems in schools and how they're trying to. There are some programs out there that are trying to undermine families, but the church and if you're really truly looking at the heritage that we come from, family is so important.
Yeah, for sure.
They totally help you, lead you, guide you, and walk beside you, right?
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, so I'm thankful for that, for the church too, and knowing that we have a all-powerful Father in heaven as well. Yeah.
That's great, yeah.
So you are not long off of your mission. How long has it been?
I got back 2019 in October. Yeah, so it's been almost 2 years now. Yeah. Crazy. I got back, and my wife, she just loves this story. I came back. I started dating my wife like 2 months after. Then we got married 2 months after that. So
woo, good job.
About 4 months, I guess, engaged, but
that's awesome. I didn't get married till I was 29. So
no, I didn't think, like, that wasn't my goal or mindset. I wasn't trying to get married. I didn't think, I should phrase that better. She's like, what? I wasn't thinking I would get married that fast.
Yeah.
But I had known her since my junior year of high school. So we both were on the mission at the same time. She was in Kentucky and I was in North Dakota and South Dakota. We came back, we were best friends all throughout the mission. And she had told me that she wanted to date. And I was like, oh man, like, I've been trying to date you. Like, it's just friend zone. Like, we were in the clear. So it went pretty fast. But, I think that just serving that mission, really helped me to get to that point, spiritually, mentally, and physically, even to even think about getting married. So it helped a lot. It really did. I loved it.
And now you're up in Rexburg at BYU Idaho.
Yeah. It was funny because when I started going, I'll talk about this, I'm sure, later, but I'm a barber full time. So when I was in Provo living here after the mission, I went to barber school. And I started, cutting hair just at my apartment. I'd pull up to my friends' homes and I was cutting at my grandma's house, like just anywhere, because I loved it on the mission. And so bringing that back home with me and making a career out of it now, I never thought I'd be able to do that. And it's just so awesome. So we moved up to Rexburg because of my wife and her schooling. So I'm currently not in school. I haven't been to college, technically university, I guess, but we moved up there, and it was funny because I told her and she told me we'll never move to Idaho because we have friends up there, and we went to visit once and it was so cold. Like, I was like, I'm not dealing with this. Yeah. But here we are, and it's really worked out great for us. We love it. It's a cool little town, Rexburg, and it's growing, and we just have fun every day. And she's doing physical therapy school, so that's really why we moved there, so she could apply and try to get in. And she just got in, so we're going to start her 2-year journey of doing that program on Monday.
That's so great. Good for you guys. That's really awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah. Did you guys pray a lot about those decisions, or were they just goals that you've always worked towards? How did you guys get to those points?
I would say, definitely prayer was a huge part. Just faith in general. I'm really one that used to believe in, I guess, coincidences before the mission. But now that I've been on the mission, I believe that divine intervention and, God's plan for each of us, as long as we're living true to his commandments, like, stuff will just line up perfectly for you. I was cutting hair in school, and this one guy, I wish I could remember his name. I have his picture. I need to message him and say, hey man, you're the reason we're doing this. Because he told me that his wife did this 2-year program up at BYU, Idaho for physical therapy, assisting. And he said, we went up there, we toughed it out. It wasn't that bad. We loved it. And she got her degree, and we finished, and we came back, and we were able to move wherever she wanted to get a job. So I was cutting his hair, and I was like, you know what? Like, maybe I brought it up to my wife that night, and I said, we ought to consider moving to Rexburg because, X, Y, and Z. Like, these are all the benefits of going up there. It's cheaper school. It's cheaper living, definitely. And it's a short program, and you can really, apply to it. And I think you can get in. And so that was that. We prayed, and she, with the support of my family and her family, especially, they're physical therapists already. Uh-huh. And so they were more than happy for her to just pursue that. And so definitely prayer and just listening to that prompting that we both had, that, hey, maybe we should go against our initial, preconceived notions about Idaho and just move up there and sort of get it going and just tough the snow out. So, but it's fun. Yeah.
That's so cool. And so how much longer do you guys have up there?
So she starts on Monday. And from here on, I think this semester till the end of the program is roughly 2 years. So we'll be locked in there for sure for 2 years.
That's okay.
Yeah. It's not bad.
Especially if she's in the program. Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's so great.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you kind of mentioned before we started that you had played high school sports. Is that right? So what did you play?
I went to Provo High, like I was saying, and I played basketball. I've always played basketball since I could remember. Just love it. I played baseball. I love that sport too. I didn't play it all throughout high school, but I played freshman year. And volleyball was huge. So my family, they've been playing at Provo High, like my mom and my aunts, like ever since, they were all high school age. So Provo High volleyball runs deep, I guess, in our family. So they had every high school when I went, they have a men's club team or boys club team.
Yeah.
And my mom was actually the coach for a couple of years. So she coached us and we played, and it's really like state and everything. They have it all set up, and we played Timpview and we played Pleasant Grove and Salem Hills. And even up here, they have like Harriman and Riverton and Draper. Like it's pretty competitive. So I loved it. And my mom's loves that my brothers and I play volleyball too. So it's always just fun. And those are my two main sports, I guess, basketball and volleyball.
That's super cool. What lessons have you learned from playing those sports?
It's infinite. The list goes on. I mean, I still play to this day as much as I can. I think a lesson that sticks with me as of now is team building, and at the same time, social interaction. Networking goes a long way. When I moved to Rexburg, I had to start from scratch. I had 2 or 3 clients that were my mission buddies, and I was like, I could give you a haircut. But going up there and just getting out of my comfort zone, going to, I have a basketball gym at my apartment complex, and I go every night. In the beginning, I went every night, and I would just play pickup games, and I'd tell everybody after the game, hey, I'm a barber. If you want a haircut or you have anybody that needs a haircut, I live right here. And then I also I cut at the shop now down in downtown Rexburg on Main Street. And they're like, okay. And so from then it just grew. Like it's busy as can be now. And
Good.
so I think basketball, if I didn't play basketball, I don't know. I'd have to go on the street and just talk to everybody. And I don't know. It's a really helpful source of social interaction, I think.
Yeah. And I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
I think that's something that is unique about our church as well, because we send out missionaries and they get to meet all different kinds of people. And in the church, the world is so small.
Oh, yeah, it really is. Especially with our our Native American heritage, everybody, well, if you talk to my grandparents, everybody knows everybody from that generation, at least. It's so tight knit that if you say someone's name, they're bound to know it. The church culture is doubled, I feel like, if you're Native American and you just have that background. People just know you, because I feel like there's not that many, but it's growing, and so everybody kind of knows each other and wants to help each other out. So it's kind of like that. So
when you got your mission call to the Dakotas, how did you feel about that?
I told someone this the other day. I think I was talking to my mom and a couple of friends. We were talking about missionary service, and I can go back to that moment when I read the North Dakota Bismarck mission. I didn't even pronounce it right. I'd never heard of Bismarck. And I looked at it and I was like, what? Where is this? And my mind drew a blank. I forgot the Dakotas were states. And I was literally just trying to process where that was. I had no idea. And honestly, though, I was smiling through the pain. I was like, I have no idea where I'm going. It sounds kind of lame. It's up by Canada, I guess. That's going to be cold. So initially, I wasn't too hyped about it. And I had, my friends were going all, you just have the stereotypical, my friends are going to cooler missions. But really what happened was I wanted to go somewhere out of the United States. I've never been out of the United States. And I kept reading, and it was you're going to the Mexico MTC. I was like, what? So I go to Mexico to learn Spanish for 6 weeks. And it was just the craziest experience. And I was inside this nice facility, and we weren't really in the city of Mexico except for when we went on temple trips. And I quickly was rebuked. I was like, this is why you were sent to the United States, because I was like, I want to go back to the USA. We have it nice up there. And so, it was nice to be out of the country for that little bit, but I was really happy to be going back. So yeah, it worked out perfect. And I loved it after that. It was just great.
So Spanish speaking. So in the Bismarck mission, how many Spanish speakers compared to English speakers?
I only used it a handful of times. Spanish speaking. Yes. It was funny. When I got there, there were about 5 other missionaries that were Spanish speakers. We didn't have wards or branches that were specifically, Spanish wards. And so that was a shock to me. I was like, oh, wow. I hope I can use it. And the few times I did, I was glad I was able to use it. But honestly, though, the ratio was 99 to 1. It was just, if they spoke Spanish and they were there for work, they usually spoke English. So it wasn't too useful. You could communicate with them. But it was at the same time, I really think that I learned it to help me understand the gospel better.
Yeah.
It was weird thinking of it selfishly like that. But I think I went to the Mexico MTC because when you're learning the gospel again in another language, you really have to break it down in simple terms and put that into the language that you're learning. And that's how it works. That's how MTC teaches you. So for me, it was almost like God was like, I'm going to break it down as simple as I can for you because I know you need that. And I really did. I didn't have that knowledge of the gospel that I felt like most missionaries should have had going out. And so it really just made sense to me in the MTC. Like, wow, this is cool. It was like I was in primary again, like just going through all the stuff. And at the same time, I was proactively trying to relearn it in another language. So kind of helped me a lot in that sense.
That's cool. Did you get to serve on or near any reservations?
I did. I was there over half of the mission.
Yeah.
I was on the Cheyenne River Sioux reservation, and I just loved that place. I actually went back about 3 weeks ago to visit. Love it. It really is like we say, a sovereign nation. It's just different. I mean, I went there to the Dakotas hearing that there were reservations. Yeah. And I was like, oh, cool. Like, maybe they'll send me there. My mission president, I love that guy. And you know him, like President Howell. He was just like, I don't know. He just worked so close with me and the reservations because it was me and 2 other Native Americans in the mission. One was an elder, one was a sister. And so it was awesome that I just got to, he kept me there forever. I went, my first reservation, I was there about 7 months. And then he gave me a little break. I went back up to North Dakota. I served an award for like 3 transfers or 2. I can't remember. And that was cool. It was really like a vibe change. Like we had award and I'd only been in branches before then. And people were like, you know, attending the meetings and people were doing their things. And I was like, wow, this is like really fun. And it was like,
I forgot this is how it works.
Yeah. And so then he sent me back and I loved that because then I finished out the mission on a different reservation, but it was close enough to the one that I was on before. So I got to kind of exchange with the elders that were there and just kind of see it. And I was there for about 6 more months or however long until I'd finished. And so, yeah, well over a year, I think I was on reservations. Even when I was in North Dakota, we went to reservations because they had Newtown and the Mandan, Hidatsa, and Arikara tribes all affiliated up there. And so it was just crazy. I never thought like there were more tribes than down in the Southwest. It was just eye-opening to me. It's like, wow, there's more Native Americans
and
everywhere.
They're the same, but they're different too. Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's super cool. Did anyone on your mission really make an impact in your life? Like, do you still think about the things you've learned from them?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think anyone that has served or you know, experienced spiritual encounters and stuff like that personally, you never forget that stuff. It's like I can, you know, go on a list of people that, and it's not like huge ways, like it's some of them were, but like I really like to look at just the simple things that people do as part of their personality traits and helping me develop a more real love, Christ-like love, I guess, for other people. I loved all the companions that I served with on the reservations and just how humble we had to be in those situations with those families, you know, because it's different. It's not like here where you can go, you know, down the street to your neighbor's house and like they're like, oh yeah, we're having you over for a barbecue. Like there, it was really like these people were giving you the shirt off their back. Like it was like that kind of love is just, it was daily for them, you know? And for me, it was like, wow, I could be a little more like that in a sense. Like I could be a lot more giving like these people. And they're not even, most of the time, they weren't even like members, you know, they were just, that's just how they lived. Mm-hmm. So really looking at culture in that sense was like, wow, that's a real world example of how Jesus Christ would want us to be. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it was kind of hypocritical because like I was like, oh yeah, I know how to do service and like, but I really didn't. It was just, it had to come from the heart. So I think people like that always left an impact on me.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that.
Mm-hmm.
So you mentioned to me also that you have a friend who did or does on hold a podcast about like a motivational kind of a thing.
Yeah.
What messages did you share on that?
It was kind of similar to this. He talked to me a lot about barbering, just because that's my profession now. And so he asked me questions like this, where it was like, how did you get into it? Like, did you ever have a point where you were like, this isn't going to work? Or did you ever get to a point where you were like, I could be doing something better with my time? You know, stuff like that. And it ultimately, like, I can't relate success anymore without at least giving a nod to, like, God had a hand in that, you know? And I think if we sit down and everybody thinks about their life, you have to at one point recognize that there was something that went on in the background that, you know, the Spirit either led you there or, like, you know, you were prompted, and like all this stuff like that you would have never thought of had you have done it completely by yourself. And so it was just stuff like that. And his podcast is called Life Must Go On. So it really was like, that's what he focused on, was like overcoming those obstacles and being positive and motivated to go forward with that and learning something. So, yeah, his name's Monson too. Monson Flake. That's like, he's one of my best friends, and yeah, he's awesome.
Cool.
Give him haircuts literally every time I see him.
So how many kids were in your family?
I have 2 younger brothers. So it's just 3 boys. My mom had 3 boys, and she loved it. She never wanted girls.
Well, I used to think I grew up with 3 brothers.
Oh yeah.
And then I have a much younger sister, but growing up I was like, oh man, I want to marry a guy who's at least 6 feet tall.
Yeah.
And we're going to have 5 or 6 kids, and they're going to play basketball and be their own team, or 6, and then they can play volleyball.
Yeah. That's the dream.
That was the dream. But life changes, right?
Yep.
So did you fight a lot with your brothers, or did you get along well?
Oh, we were perfect siblings. We never fought.
Oh, I'm so glad. Your mom must have been so happy.
No, we definitely fought. But it was always out of, you know, it's just sibling love. Like I mentioned, I grew up in New Mexico, so that lifestyle was a bit different than when we moved here to Utah. In New Mexico, we lived out in the desert, and so everyone was friends. Like we had kids that we played with down the street, and we literally lived in a trailer, and then we had like just the dirt that we played in, and we had fun. And so
were you guys close in age?
We are. We're about 2 years apart. Yeah. So it really was a nice setup.
So you had to be friends.
They had to be.
Because you were the only friends.
Yeah. And being the oldest, you know, I guess you wouldn't know, but like it has the, you know, the siblings look up to the oldest one. I guess you can relate to that. There's really a unspoken burden that's just always put on you that you have to just, you know, not be perfect, but set a good example and do things the way that the parents intend you to do them for that time being. And so we had fun with that, because I was almost playing the good cop, bad cop with my brothers, and you know, learning and growing like that was perfect. I loved having 2 younger brothers, and still now I have, like, they're doing their own thing. One's in high school still; he's a senior, the youngest one, and the other one after him, he's just working full time. He's a screen printer. He makes shirts and stuff, and so it's funny because we all have similarities, but we're all different and creative in our own ways. Like for me right now, it's barbering, and you know, I take photos and videos, and I film and all that. And my other brothers love that stuff too, but the brother after me, he loves to draw. Like I love to draw too, and he's really taking that onto like t-shirts, and he loves skateboarding and all that. And then my youngest brother, he's way into music. He's a musician. He plays in multiple bands and has guitars out the wazoo. And he's just really cool. So I couldn't have asked for better brothers, honestly, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just fun.
I've talked about this before, that creating is a godlike attribute.
Definitely.
So it sounds like all you guys are practicing now to become godlike one day.
Yeah.
So
it's a good way to look at it. I've never thought of that.
Yeah. I mean, that's how we're here is
Mm-hmm.
Jesus created this earth for us and created all the things here. So it's something that I've thought about that a lot as
Gotcha.
when I first learned about it in 9th grade, I think. Yeah. Anyway, so I've had artists on here and we've talked about that before.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
For sure.
Do you have anything in the Book of Mormon that has really affected your life, or any of the scriptures, I guess, really?
Oh, for sure. I mean, really, like, speaking of creating, that verse in Alma where, you know, he just drops that one liner, like, all things denote there's a God. Like, that really, as cliche as it is, like, you think about it, like, I think about it a lot. I think mostly because my wife is a physical therapist, or trying to be.
Mm-hmm.
And so she studies anatomy, and I hear about it all the time. And it's cool when she's through BYU, because they really relate that to the gospel, and just how perfect our bodies were made.
Mm-hmm.
And you think someone had to have thought the ins and outs of our literal bodies. Like, when we get hurt, we have the ability to recover most of the time. Our bodies will naturally heal themselves as long as we, you know, feed it, give it the nutrients it needs. It's very much related to everything in the gospel, like faith. You know, it requires work, and our bodies require nutrients and healthy stuff. And it's so complex that I full on just can't wrap my mind that anyone would think that God didn't create everything. Like, it just works so perfectly.
Yeah.
There was an author of all of this stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and it's amazing. In Utah, I think we're really spoiled to live right next to these beautiful mountains, and the scenery and the animals, and just all of that is awesome. Because in North Dakota, we didn't have mountains. There's none of that. It's super flat. It's still pretty though, but it's in its own way. But just these amazing, like, landscapes all around. Like, it just, I don't
so
think it
much
just happened.
variety.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for me, that scripture, all things denote there is a God, and like the planets, and, you know, everything in its perfect alignment. Like, it's just like, wow, it's profound scripture. And I think he was saying it to one of those dudes that were just giving him a hard time about, you know, there's not a God. Like, we hear all those stories. People will really try to tell you that you're nothing. You came from nothing. There's no point in this life, and giving your life to helping others, and, you know, all this stuff. And he's like, no, like, you got to look at it as a literal sense of, like, we are divine beings, and we're brothers and sisters in our own respect, and we just need to help each other and get to that higher plane of living the gospel. So
Yeah.
that's one scripture that definitely has stuck with me.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm going to guess you were raised in the gospel.
Yeah, I was. Yeah.
Yeah. So were your parents raised in the gospel, or were they?
Yeah. Well, let's see. My mom, yes, the missionaries converted my great grandma back on the reservation in Hogback.
Wow.
Like, when was that? Like 2 generations back. Yeah.
That's awesome.
They came, and like, missionaries will always have that, like, just special place in my heart because of that. Because, like, when I was out on the reservation, I thought that I was like, I could, you know, be a helping hand in somebody's conversion. And that's all it is. Like, we're not trying to sell anything. We're not trying to, you know, have these experiences to go back and say, oh yeah, I did this and that. It's just like, we're really trying to help people just to get, you know, a perspective on their life and an opportunity to create a better home. So for me, yeah, the missionaries, they have that impact on my family because, yeah, they introduced the gospel to my great grandma. And then her daughter, my grandma, was baptized. And then she raised her children, my mom and her 4 sisters, in the church. And that just opened a lot of doors. You know, they moved from the reservation. They started their careers and they had families and, you know, all while respectively holding on to that heritage that we love. But it's always just further knowledge of this gospel living. And yeah, my mom, she's a pretty strong woman in the gospel, and she kind of had to be for a while because my parents ended up actually getting divorced when I was about 13. So having her as a single mom for a second really like took all of the, I guess, fluff out of the gospel, and she made it real. Like, God has to be part of your life in some way, shape, or form, because we can't do it by ourselves. So for her, she's really strong. My dad, he was raised a little bit in the gospel. And so he raised us too. He loves like the church, I think. He has, he was really one that like it set the example for me of what it means to be a priesthood holder and just being a good man in general. And still to this day, I look up to him and he's awesome. But I came from both of those good backgrounds. So I would say, you know, I had a pretty good upbringing.
Yeah.
I loved it.
That's so great.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that you just basically told us that your mom took those lemons that she was given and made something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. For sure.
She sounds like a good woman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's great.
So what is something that you have on your, let me start over. Hey, Valine.
Yeah.
Shh, quiet. You're being loud. What is something that you've done that you are really proud of that you haven't already mentioned?
Man. You know, I'd like to say that I have a lot of oh, whoops. Hold on. Let me turn this off. My phone's buzzing. Looking back on my upbringing and stuff, and it's funny how in the church I think that we have these kids and we raise them to believe in God, and they go to primary and it's amazing. And they get to these teenage years where I was and my brothers are, and like you kind of just like, oh yeah, the church is always going to be there, like it's good and all, and you kind of like don't practice what you have been told at that point. And so for me, I think going on the mission and really internalizing the gospel message and having the Spirit just guide me to the person that I am today, that's probably one of the biggest accomplishments that I can look back on and say I've changed, and I continue to change for the better, or try to do that every day in some way, shape, or form, because I know that the gospel is meant to help and guide your life and get you to be a perfect being one day. And right now we're trying to be good husbands, good wives, good brothers and sisters, fathers, mothers. And for me, that accomplishment is just, I think about it all the time. Like, I really could be doing something else, like with my life. I could end up in not a good place. But since I have this knowledge, and I've come from like just literally knowing nothing about the Book of Mormon or anything. Like, I never read it fully in its entirety in high school.
Sure.
And, I think a lot of youth can relate to that.
Right.
And I really try to tell that to people when they meet me and we get to talking about stuff like this, where I'm like, you don't have to have a perfect knowledge of things related to the gospel. God will work with you as long as you let him.
Yeah.
And going through that process of reading the Book of Mormon and praying and studying, it just internalizes and it just makes sense. Like it's just awesome. And I can't describe it in any other way other than you learn to love yourself and you learn to love the family that you grew up in, and just, you're blessed every day that you have this plan and this vision of what you're supposed to be.
Yeah. Yeah. I was just talking to some lady friends yesterday about how we, as Latter-day Saints, we believe the atonement is real. Mm-hmm. And if we don't believe the atonement is real, how can we move forward? And how can we allow other people to move forward if we don't believe that? So we're always hoping that we're moving forward, but if we have to use the atonement, that is the perfect gift that we've been given. So
yeah, well, that's a perfect way to put it. Yeah, I believe that. Like it's just, you really have to. It's one of those things where people get confused, where they're like, it's not right to forgive and forget people. Like they still owe me something. Like it hurts you more. We've heard it a ton of times in talks. Like it hurts you more to hold on to that grudge, whether it be with yourself or with other people. It hurts you more than to just simply forgive them and say, hey, let's move on. Let's try to rebuild that connection if you want, or let's move on from it and let's grow as individuals and let's be better. Yeah. And I just love that. I think other accomplishment is just marrying my wife. Like that was really, like, man, my family will tell you I was like head over heels for her in high school, but I didn't say anything. I tried with my actions, but we never dated or anything, and we were just best friends. And I came out of the friend zone. I think that's the biggest accomplishment next to conversion that I can think of. And she'll grill me for it. She's like, oh, I always liked you. I'm like, yeah, it didn't seem like it.
Oh, I'm happy for you. I have one final question for you.
Yeah.
What does it mean to you to know that you belong to the tribe of Israel?
Well, it's everything. I mean, you have to, as a child of God, and specifically as a child of Native American heritage, it's really special. We have the Book of Mormon, I think, solely to help our generation of Native Americans and, other cultures respectively, to connect us to God. When I was on the mission, I read that in the Book of Mormon, like for the first time, you are of the house of Israel. And I thought, I've always heard that my whole life, and I've never internalized it until now. Mm-hmm. And being on the reservation in those moments, that was just the happiest thing I could tell people. Look at scripture, and it was in the Bible too, and it's just, Jesus taught, like, these are my chosen people, and we're supposed to be living here, but right now we're living down here. But we can get there. We just have to educate and continually use the atonement, like you were saying, mm-hmm. to forgive ourselves and know that God forgives us and loves us as well. So being in that state of knowing where I come from is just the biggest blessing that I have. I guess it's like, or one of the biggest blessings I have. It's just knowing that there's divine potential for all of us. And, like the whole push on missionary work is gathering the house of Israel now. So, I mean, mm-hmm. President Nelson has said it, and it's awesome when he does now. It's just like, we're really trying to gather this covenant keeping people. Not to say that we're better than anyone. That's not at all the mission. The mission is to get as many people to have the scales fall from their eyes, as the scriptures mm-hmm. say, and to know that there is truth in this life that is everlasting. And that truth and knowledge just ultimately makes us better as people. And it's just amazing. It's just every day. You can't even say enough about it. It's just awesome.
Yeah. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your testimony. And
Thank you for having me on. This is awesome. I love this.
Thanks. So, when Devin introduced himself, he did not introduce himself in the Navajo language. I also do not speak the Navajo language. You all know that. And I think that kind of hit home with me. And then as we talked about other things too, I really was thinking about how it's possible for both of us to learn the Navajo language, and maybe we never will. Let's be honest, I won't. I can't. I don't know. I don't have enough speakers around me to learn the language. But he also talked about how when he went on his mission, he really had not known the Book of Mormon that well. He knew it, but not well. And but he learned it, and it has become something that he holds as a precious gift from the Lord. And I think that's something that we all can do. We can all learn that language, the language of the Book of Mormon, and we can incorporate that into our life, and we can share that with other people. And if they don't know that language, we can share that language with them. We also talked about the atonement and how we can move forward and become better people and better disciples, and we don't have to let mistakes of the past define us, who we are at the moment. I think that is a beautiful gift from the Lord. Anyway, I really had a good time with Devin today. I have really been thankful for so many things. My life is full of goodness, and I truly hope that you who are listening can feel the spirit that we're trying to share with you, and that you can know that we have a testimony of the Savior Jesus Christ. And I hope you have a super wonderful, awesome day. Tribe of Testimonies is not affiliated with the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. The music is a traditional hymn, Come Thou Fount of Every Blessing, arranged and performed by Kyle Forsyth. If you know someone who might be interested in being a guest, please reach out to me at tribeoftestimonies@gmail.com.